Hey friends, welcome back to Clubhouse Kids. This video is video one of a new series about infant development and resources and activities and all kinds of things that you can do with your littlest learners in your daycare program. So this will be video one. We're going to be talking about the youngest students that we can have, which are our 2-month-olds, those little ones that are between 8 and 11 weeks old. So we're going to be talking about attachment, sleep patterns, feeding, all the things that is what is important as us providers to focus on and make sure that we are providing to these littlest students in our care. So when should a baby start daycare? So a lot of babies start between the ages of 6 and 8 weeks. And I know you are saying, oh my gosh, that is so young. But many factors go into this decision. So parental leave varies significantly in America. So some parents don't have a choice. They have to go back to work, requiring them to enroll their infants between 6 and 8 weeks into a childcare program. Not everyone has a family that lives by them that can take the infants for a little while, and everyone has different financial responsibilities, so that can look different for everybody, making that decision having to weigh heavily on when their child enrolls into a childcare program. So as a provider, you get to decide if you want to enroll children as young as 6 weeks into your program. We will discuss the pros and the cons later in this video, but most importantly, if you do take on these littlest learners, you need to be prepared and ready, and hopefully this video will give you more tools in your tool belt to take care of these little ones. So let's talk 2-month-old development. So the most important things going on in a 2-month-old's development is attachment, feeding patterns, and sleeping patterns. So as a provider, these are the 3 areas that you want to focus on if you have a 2-month-old in your care. So attachment establishes a healthy bond so that the infant seeks closeness and feels secure in the presence of the attachment figure. So in this case, you as the provider. Think about attachment as the foundation of your house. So if the foundation is strong, meaning the baby feels secure, then all the other parts of the house, regulating, sense of trust, eagerness to learn, can be experienced at optimal development. So how do we form that attachment in infants? First, and most importantly, you want to touch them, hold them, cuddle them. You always want them with you. You want to respond to their crying. Crying is how infants communicate. So when you respond to an infant's cry, they learn that their needs are important and that they're going to be met. And then third, you want to constantly be making eye contact with the infants. So when you're changing them, when you're feeding them, when you're holding them, when you're cuddling them during circle time, all throughout the whole day, you want to be making eye contact with them. You want to be smiling at them. You want to be making facial expressions. All that is going to form that healthy attachment. Another very important part about caring for 2-month-olds is a feeding pattern. So infants at 2 months need to be fed just on their own time schedules. So if baby seems hungry, you feed them. And each infant is going to have very individual needs when it comes to feeding. Breastfed babies are going to be fed more frequently than formula-fed babies. And if you do have breastfed babies in your care, you do want to make sure that they can take a bottle before you begin caring for them. So always hold the baby while you're feeding them and burping them frequently. And the third thing that you want to focus on with your 2-month-old is sleep patterns. So infants at 2 months sleep between 15 and 16 hours in the 24-hour period. So ideally, they're sleeping 6 hours at home, so that would be their nighttime hours. So the majority of that time that they are napping and sleeping is going to be in your care. While the baby sleeps, their brain processes all the new experiences and skills they are learning. So simply put, sleep builds the baby's brain. So to summarize, the crucial areas you attend to as an infant provider, especially for your 2-month-olds, are attachment, feeding, and sleeping. So now let's talk about, should you enroll a 2-month-old into your program? So I'm going to give you some things to consider. The first one is that there is a huge need for infant care at this very young age. A lot of daycares do not enroll this young, and so this would be a great advantage to your program. Another thing to consider is that infants take a lot of one-on-one attention, and so you would not be able to have as many children enrolled into your program if you cared for infants. Licensed provider ratios vary between state to state, but generally in the commercial daycares, you see a 1-to-4 ratio, and in home daycares, you see a 1-to-3 ratio if you're caring for infants. If you have a smaller group of children, you're going to have to charge a higher tuition rate to be able to run your program. So that's another thing to consider. And then one more thing to think about is infants aren't for everyone. They have fussy periods, they require a lot of one-on-one care. You have to deal with those first-time parents, and so just think about all these considerations when deciding if you want to enroll those littlest learners. So something to ask yourself: am I patient enough to care for infants? Am I sensitive enough to baby's needs? So are you somebody who is going to be able to react and see a baby crying and pick them up and take care of those needs all day long? Do I understand child developmental stages? Do I have the time to provide for an infant in my program? So those are all things to consider when deciding if you want to enroll infants into your program, especially those that are as young as 8 to 11 weeks. So if you do decide to enroll infants, let me share with you a helpful resource that I use in my program that will make it easier for you to meet the developmental needs of your littlest learners. I use a curriculum called Grow With Me. This resource gives you developmentally appropriate activities to do with your infants in your care during their first year of life. So if you have an infant who is 8 weeks old, they would be working through the 2-month-old Grow With Me activities. So the areas of development that the Grow With Me curriculum does is cognitive, fine motor, gross motor, sensory, social emotional, and speech and language. So let me share with you what my 2-month-old Grow With Me resource looks like. So this is Grow With Me Teacher's Guide for a 2-month-old in your childcare program. So 2 months is considered 8 to 11 weeks. And the first page goes over a 2-month-old milestones. So they are learning to smile, they're lifting their shoulders while lying on the belly, they're holding their head steady while they're sitting, they're becoming aware of their own fingers, they're focusing on objects, they're straightening out their legs, they're strengthening those kicks, they're cooing and making sounds, starting to recognize faces, and they're relinquishing their grasp reflex, meaning that when a baby is born, they have a very tight fist, and you're going to see that that little tight fist is starting to become more relaxed. And so what I like to do, since I do laminate these forms, is I will usually use just like a white erase marker, and when I have a baby going through my 2-month-old developmental booklet, I will usually just check off little things that I see throughout that month. Now, I don't want to use this as like they have to master all these by the time that they are 3-month-old. That is just not the way that babies develop. Each baby develops differently, and so, but it's just a good way to know if a baby is developing appropriately, and if you're noticing that they are not meeting any milestones, that can become a red flag that you can bring up to parents, that they can also then bring up to their baby's doctor. So these are the Grow With Me activities that you would do with a 2-month-old in your care. I have an activity for cognitive development, fine motor, gross motor, sensory, social emotional, and speech and language. And each activity is standard based, and so you see the standard here. So for cooing, the standard is use some sounds and body movements to communicate, and then it gives you the activity that you would do to meet that standard. And then the next page, it just says 2 months in the classroom, and it just gives you some ideas of things, some of my favorite resources that I use for 2-month-olds in my program. Now, the thing about this young of age, you do not need a lot. Please do not spend a lot of money on items for 2-month-olds. You can find this stuff secondhand. You do not need much for this age group. For the most part, you just need to carry those babies and love on them. I tried to find just the bare minimum things that you might want in your program. I do like using bassinets at this age because I like to, even while the baby is sleeping, I like to have them by me. And bassinets are really nice that you can just kind of push around your classroom wherever you are. Then you can also have the baby. I love bouncers for this age group. They work really nice, especially if you have a multi-age classroom. They don't take up a lot of room. Baby can sit in that while you do circle time, and you can keep baby by you. Slings are so very important at this age. It's so easy to just carry baby around, especially if you have a multi-age classroom. This tummy time mat, now in my classroom, I usually just use a blanket. If your classroom is a hard surface floor, you do want the mat to have a little cushion to it. And then, you do want to have just a couple rattles, but you do not need a lot. And this is the best thing about this infant toys is people overbuy this age group. So check out yard sales. You can get so much of this stuff for very reasonably priced at a yard sale. And most of it looks brand new because, let's be honest, babies don't use this very long. So in my classroom, I just have a little basket of rattles that I use. And when I don't have this age group anymore, they just go into my closet. So you really do not need a lot of toys and a lot of items for this age group. So that is it. And the back page just shows you what the curriculum is called, Grow With Me. So that is some things that I do with my 2-month-olds in my care. If you found this video helpful, check out my Grow With Me playlist, where you'll find a video for each month of an infant's first year. I provide helpful tips and activities to enrich their infant development. I've also linked my Grow With Me Infants curriculum, which you can download to use in your own program. And this is a free resource that I hope you will find helpful and fun. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.